Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Bridal Society's wedding webcast. We are so happy to have all of you here. And we are going to be talking about something very, very important. But first, I want to make sure that you know who the Bridal Society is. So the Bridal Society is the world's leading wedding planner certification program and the largest group of certified wedding planners. My name is Lori Hartwell. I'm the founder and CEO of the Bridal Society. And this is Chrissy Thomas, my fabulous co-instructor. And she's also an award-winning wedding planner and owner of Southern Sparkle Weddings and Events. Hi, Chrissy.
Hello, Lori. I love this time of the month. I love being able to spend time with you and share some tips and advice for all of the engaged couples out there. So I'm excited about today's topic.
Oh, me too. It's going to be absolutely amazing. Today's topic is a two-part series. We're going to do a little bit of it today and a little bit of it at the end of December, but it's about the 4 most common mistakes made by newly engaged couples. See, couples that are getting married today, they do their absolute best to start off the planning process on the right foot. However, many mistakes are made because they haven't ever planned a wedding before. They won't necessarily know the ins and outs of all the thousands of steps that it takes to ensure that their wedding's even going to go off without a hitch. So today we will be talking about some of those most common mistakes that we see couples make and how to solve them. So let's kind of just jump right into the very first mistake that we see, Chrissy. So the first one is not hiring a certified wedding planner from the very beginning. So touch on that for me.
Yeah, absolutely. So what I have found is one of the biggest mistakes that engaged couples tend to make in their wedding planning process is booking their wedding planner after they have secured their venue and other vendors. Hiring a certified wedding planner should honestly be step one for every couple as they start to plan their big day. Your certified wedding planner can assist you with your venue research. And there's so much that goes into finding the perfect venue for your wedding day. So many variables that can go into that. Things such as like the guest counts, how much space is going to be required to hold all of your guests at your wedding venue. But not only that, but we also think about things such as your dance floor, if you're having a buffet table, your bar, the cake table, the band, and the DJ setup. All of that could go into account of exactly how big of a space you're going to need for your wedding venue. Things such as like the services and the amenities, what they offer at your venue, and also pricing, which is a big one. What's included in that price with your wedding venue and what's going to actually cost you extra? Your certified wedding planner will have all of these variables and know all of these details in mind when you're doing the research for finding the venue, and when she's going to give you suggestions for what's going to be a good space for you and your fiance when it comes to your big day.
Right, because we're seeing the bigger picture because it isn't our first wedding. It's not our first rodeo, is kind of what you hear all the time. What we do is we are able to take in all of this extra information and we can go ahead and give some really great advice before the couple goes ahead and books that venue space. I mean, talk to me real quick too, because some couples that are listening right now may be thinking to themselves, well, what is the big deal if the guest count doesn't match up perfectly? Can't we squeeze more people at a table? Can you talk a little bit about where the big problems can come in?
And those can end up being really big problems. What I say when couples book a venue without even considering their guest count is, as a planner, I can do a lot of things. I can't add on square footage to your venue space.
You
I
can't do that?
No, right? I can't just build an extra 1,000 square feet to fit these extra few hundred people. And I know in theory, the thought process of, well, let me just add more people to a table.
Right.
Sounds like a good idea. But when you think about what goes on your wedding table, you're going to have your charger, the glassware, the napkins, all of that takes up space. And when you have too many place settings around a table, it can be extremely tight. Not only that, but when you have too many bodies at a table, you want your guests to feel comfortable. And if they're too squeezed in and too tight and someone's a bit too close to them chewing on their macaroni and cheese, it may make your guests feel uncomfortable. So that's one of the big picture items where, as a planner, when we come in and make venue suggestions, we're considering those details. And also, like I mentioned, earlier about your DJ and your band, they have to have a required amount of space for their equipment. And if you haven't considered that during your venue research, that may be a problem that you'll run into later on.
Not to mention the electricity needs that they might be having as well. And when you mentioned dance floor, I don't think that a lot of couples really consider the size of the dance floor. One of the things I definitely want to make clear too is that when you're hiring a certified wedding planner, they know how big your dance floor needs to be dependent on the guest count that you are expecting. Now, of course, if you have a couple of extra people, it's not going to disrupt that number too much. But if you're not factoring that in from the very beginning and you hire a venue that cannot accommodate you at all, this is a huge mistake. So hire a certified wedding planner because they know all the ins and outs. They know how to take in all that information and they know how to direct you in the right direction. It is so important. Now,
honestly, it's a mistake that can actually be costly. So let's say that you fall in love with a venue, put your deposit down, go home, make your guest list, hire your planner, and it's not going to work out. You end up having to get a new venue. You're probably not going to get that deposit back. So I hate for my couples to make mistakes that are going to cost them money. So let's get on it from the very beginning and hire that planner first.
And that deposit's not a couple $100. It's a couple of thousands of, it's a thousands of dollars type of amount. So not getting that kind of money back, if you find that you've made a terrible mistake and it's too late to turn back time, that can be, just like you said, incredibly costly. And so we want to make sure that's what the job is of a certified wedding planner. And I highly recommend certified wedding planners through the Bridal Society. Their job is to mitigate all of these risks and to look at all of this information so that we can save you as much money as possible, save you from making huge mistakes, sometimes mistakes that you can't undo. And so it can be really tough. And so hire that certified wedding planner from the very beginning, rely on their knowledge, rely on their expertise and experience, because they know what goes into it and they know what's going to make your wedding absolutely amazing. So let's talk about the next mistake that we see a lot of newly engaged couples making, and that's not thinking about that budget in advance, right? So not having that determination, sitting down and looking at all of the numbers and figuring out what to do. Why, Chrissy, should any of the couples really worry so much about this?
It's so funny when you think about budget. Sometimes it's like a dirty word, like, oh, the B word, wedding budget, and I understand when you're thinking about your wedding budget, it can be stressful because you may not know exactly where to go. You may, Google and find some numbers that aren't going to make sense for you, but you have to take the time to kind of create that wedding budget so you have an idea about what you're going to be spending on your big day in order to even start the wedding planning fun. And that's where a certified wedding planner can come in. Your certified wedding planner can assist you in the creation of your wedding budget. The earlier a newly engaged couple books that certified wedding planner, the better for your wedding budget. Because like we mentioned earlier, you can make some costly mistakes, but your certified wedding planner is there to break down your overall budget and give you an idea about where to spend in each category. They're going to offer you guidance on the price range of each vendor and how to stay in your budget, what service they're going to offer. That's something that your certified wedding planner can come in and help. Not only that, but they will work with you in determining, what's a priority to you, what's the most important things when you think about your wedding day, and give you advice on how to allocate those funds based on what's important to you. And I've had couples who, the biggest thing to them is the photographer. So that they want to splurge on the photographer and then maybe trim back on the floral design. That's where a certified wedding planner, we can give you tips and advice and make suggestions for vendors who we know are going to not only fit your personality and your style, but also your budget as well.
Yeah, I think that this conversation really needs to take place because every single couple, I would say, is different. They all have their own different needs, wants. They have different visions. And the truth is, when we create that budget from the very beginning, we are able to really direct them in the right way because we know how to save some money in little places that couples would never even dream of. And it kind of does go back to when you're not working with a CWP, a certified wedding planner, it can really just end up costing you so much more. A lot of people think, well, do I really need one? I mean, I read that one wedding magazine, or, well, my cousin has always wanted to, she likes planning events, but I want to make sure that people understand that being a wedding planner isn't just like a part-time job. It is actually rated number 5. It's the 5th most stressful job in America. So who's above us with that? So we've got pilots, the military, police officers, and firefighters. And then number 5 is us. And so the reason why our job is really stressful and incredibly difficult is because there are so many variables. There's over 5,000 details to every single event, and they all have to perfectly come together on a wedding day in order for everything to run smoothly. Now, why am I saying this? I'm saying this because if you go back in time, like if we've got the wedding day coming up tomorrow, this planning should have started 12 months before that, right? On average, that's what you're looking at. So if the planning 12 months ago did not start off correctly, and we did not have a budget, things changed every 5 seconds, then the planning process doesn't go quite as smoothly, and that ensures that your wedding day may not be as great as you were hoping. That's why hiring a certified wedding planner as early as possible is going to change everything. And they're going to sit down with you when it comes to your budget, and they're going to say, all right, so you've got X amount of dollars budgeted for flowers, but that's not even going to cover a bouquet. So we want to make sure that you as a couple, an engaged couple, have as much knowledge as you possibly can going into the planning process, because we don't want you to have any last minute surprises. We want you to know the average cost for the photographers in your area. We want you to know how much a DJ is supposed to cost, because there are some DJs out there that are not professional DJs. They just have an iPod and a speaker, and they have absolutely no idea what the flow is supposed to be. And a DJ is one of the most important, wedding professionals that you can even hire. But people are like, oh, I don't want to spend more than, a few $100s on a DJ. These are things that a certified wedding planner is going to want to talk to you about, because it is quite literally the difference between having a horrendous wedding versus an amazing event that your couples are talking about for years to come, but in a positive way, not a negative way.
And Lori, you piggyback off what you just said about the knowledge and the education. That's one of your big benefits of hiring a certified wedding planner through the Bridal Society, is that we have taken the time to get that education. It's one of my clients I met with this past weekend, and I was just throwing figures at her, and she was like, how do you know all this? And A, my experience, but B, because I've been educated, because I know nationwide what the averages are going to be. And I know even more in particular with my area. So I'm able to kind of spit these facts and this information that obviously benefits my clients and their wedding days.
It is so true. So don't skimp on the really important things. Make sure that you have a certified wedding planner. Don't think that you're going to save money by not having one. It actually usually costs you more when you don't have a professional guiding you through the entire process. And every planner has different levels of packages that you can choose. So we can most likely get you into a package that is going to fit your needs as well as your budget. I can almost guarantee it. And then you don't have to worry about whether or not you're missing all of these big, ticket items, or are you missing some really important details that if those go by the wayside and do not get taken care of, will that have a huge impact on your actual wedding day? All of these things matter. And that's what, I kind of see wedding days, and Chrissy, I've told you this 100 million times, but I see wedding days as a huge 5,000 piece puzzle, right? Which I don't recommend anybody actually doing a 5,000 piece puzzle unless that's quite literally your full-time job. But it's a 5,000 piece puzzle, right? That is, I see all these pieces floating around. One piece is the photography, hiring the photographer. Then it's about making sure that we find the right package. And are we going to have the photographer that meets our personality as well as our budget? And like, there's so many details just with the photographer. What time are we getting married? What time is sunset? Like, there's a million little teeny tiny details. So all of these details are flying around. And on wedding day, my favorite part of wedding days is watching all those puzzle pieces finally settle and clicking right into place. It is magical.
Yeah.
Certified wedding planners ensure that all of your 5,000 puzzle pieces fit together on the wedding day. And we don't have missing pieces. We don't have any pieces that the dog ate and ran away with, there's none of that. Because that's our job. That is why we are rated as the 5th most stressful job, is because we take it so personal. We see your wedding as a piece of us. And we want to make sure that your wedding is just as magical as you could ever dream of. So please make sure that you're thinking of all of those things when it comes to your wedding and the mistakes that a lot of newly engaged couples are making. Now, at the end of next month, the last Tuesday of December, we're going to be talking about the last two mistakes. And I'm just going to give everybody kind of a sneak peek on what those are going to be. Okay. We're going to be talking about hiring a friend instead of a wedding pro. That's major. Okay. And not booking your wedding professionals in the correct order. This is huge.
There's a science behind how you book your wedding pros, and a certified wedding planner is an expert on that science.
That's right. So hire a wedding planner scientist, and then all will be well with the world. Well, thank you so much, Chrissy, for joining me today on our wedding webcast. I really hope that we're helping some couples out there. We want to make sure that you have the most incredible day. And the only way that I can ensure that that's going to happen is if you hire a certified wedding planner through the Bridal Society. So happy planning, you guys. I hope all of you have an amazing day. And I will see you guys at the end of December. Thanks, Chrissy. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.